The morning rain tapped against Michael Carter's apartment window as he sorted through his mail. The familiar rhythm of droplets against glass was a soothing backdrop, a sound he had come to appreciate in the quiet moments of his life. Among the usual bills and advertisements, a thick manila envelope caught his eye. It had no return address, its weight and bulk suggesting something significant within. With a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, he tore it open. Inside, he found $50,000 in cash, neatly bundled, accompanied by a note. The note was brief, yet it conveyed a depth of emotion that struck him hard. It was a desperate apology, a plea for forgiveness. The writer expressed regret for hurting him, acknowledging that money couldn't make up for lost years. Michael recognized the handwriting immediately. Sarah, his ex-wife, who had vanished 15 years ago without explanation. A flood of emotions surged through him, a mix of anger, confusion, and a glimmer of hope. He didn't need the money, he needed answers. The envelope bore a postmark from Chicago, a city Sarah had no connection to when they were together. Michael had built a successful life as an accountant, but the void left by Sarah's abrupt departure had never truly healed. He had spent years grappling with the aftermath of her leaving, depression, therapy, and the slow, painful process of rebuilding his life. He had dated occasionally, but never remarried. The shadows of their past lingered, a constant reminder of what could have been. The decision to seek her out was immediate and instinctual. He called in sick to work, packed an overnight bag, and set off for Chicago. The 3-hour drive gave him ample time to reflect on their life together, the dreams they had shared, and the painful aftermath of her departure. Memories flickered through his mind like a film reel. Laughter, arguments, the blissful moments intertwined with the bitter sting of betrayal. Arriving in Chicago, he navigated the streets with a sense of urgency. The postmark had led him to a neighborhood on the north side, an area that felt foreign yet familiar. After hours of searching, he found himself in a small coffee shop, a key place filled with the rich aroma of brewing coffee. As he sipped a cup, he hesitated, the weight of his mission pressing down on him. He approached the barista, a young woman with an easy smile, and showed her a photograph of Sarah. To his surprise, she recognized her immediately. "Oh, Sarah Winters? She comes in every Thursday with her son. Nice kid, about 14, I think." Michael's heart raced at the mention of a son. Sarah had kept her maiden name, and the timing couldn't be coincidence. Memories of their attempts to start a family before she left flooded back. He had always wanted to be a father, and the thought that he might have a son sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. The next day, he returned to the coffee shop, his heart pounding with anticipation. He waited, watching the door with a mix of hope and dread. When Sarah finally walked in, accompanied by a teenage boy who had Michael's distinctive hazel green eyes, time seemed to freeze. Sarah's expression shifted from surprise to fear as their eyes locked. "Ethan, wait outside," she instructed her son, her voice trembling slightly. The boy stepped out, leaving the two of them alone. Before they could speak, a man in an expensive suit burst into the shop, his presence commanding and aggressive. "Sarah, what the hell are you doing? Why did you empty our joint account?" Richard, her current husband, was furious, his eyes narrowing as he realized who Michael was. You're the one who's been harassing her?" he accused, his voice dripping with contempt. She has a restraining order against you. You're a monster." Stunned by the lies, Michael felt a surge of anger, but restrained himself for Ethan's sake. He left his business card on the counter, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders, and returned to his hotel devastated. The thought that his son had been raised believing he was a monster twisted like a knife in his heart. That night, Sarah appeared at his door, her face pale and drawn. "Michael, I can't believe you're here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted you to find out like this." As they talked, she revealed the truth of her departure. 15 years ago, she had discovered she was pregnant the same week she found financial documents that suggested Michael was draining their savings. A lease agreement in another woman's name and offshore account transfers had led her to believe that he planned to abandon her. Terrified of being pregnant and penniless, she had fled. Michael was dumbfounded. The papers she had found were actually for a surprise lake house purchase, her dream home. The woman's name was the real estate agent's. "I never would have done that to you, Sarah," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But there's more," she continued, her eyes filling with tears. "After I left, I married Richard. At first he seemed perfect, but he became controlling and abusive after we wed. He adopted Ethan, but he treats him coldly. I stayed because he threatened to use his wealth and connections to gain custody if I left. A month ago, I discovered evidence of his money laundering operation, something I could use to escape. The $50,000 was part apology, part plea for help. But Richard found out about the missing funds too soon. As her phone rang, Michael felt a sense of urgency. Richard was demanding she return home. In that moment, Michael made a split-second decision. He wouldn't lose his son again, nor would he allow Sarah to return to an abusive situation. The next morning, federal investigators arrived at Richard's door, acting on an anonymous tip with copies of his incriminating documents. Michael stood across the street, watching as Richard was led away in handcuffs. The sight brought a bittersweet sense of relief, but it was tinged with the pain of lost years. 3 months later, in a coastal town far from Chicago, Michael watched Ethan set up a telescope on the beach, the sun beginning to dip below the horizon. The transition hadn't been easy. Ethan was angry at his mother's lies and resentful of the stranger who claimed to be his father. But time was slowly healing those wounds. Sarah had found work and her own apartment, close enough for co-parenting, but with the independence she had been denied for years. Richard was convicted of financial fraud and tax evasion, his assets frozen, and his threats from prison kept at bay by a legitimate restraining order. As the sun set, Ethan invited Michael to look through the telescope, a small gesture with monumental meaning. They weren't a conventional family and never would be. Too much had happened, too many years lost, but they were finding their way towards something honest and healing. The $50,000 that had started this journey sat untouched in Ethan's college fund, a reminder that sometimes what seems like an ending can actually be a beginning. A second chance none of them thought possible 15 years ago. Sometimes truth takes detours, traveling long roads before coming to light. For Michael, Sarah, and Ethan, that lay light illuminated a path where forgiveness was a daily choice. Justice came through reclaiming stolen time, and love found a way to endure despite everything. In this new chapter of their lives, they were learning to navigate their complex emotions, to build bridges over the chasms of the past, and to embrace the future with cautious optimism. As they stood together on the beach, Watching the stars begin to twinkle in the twilight sky, Michael felt a sense of peace settling over him. The journey had been fraught with pain, but it had also brought them closer together. They were no longer defined by the past, but were instead forging a new path into the unknown. And for the first time in many years, Michael felt a flicker of hope for what lay ahead.